So just recently, the U.S. military came out with a new caliber. It's the 277 Fury. They've been trying to develop a new caliber for quite some time. This one's been in the works for like 2 or 3 years, and it definitely has its costs and benefits. So I kind of wanted to make a video about two topics. Number one, is the 5.56 outdated? Does it need to be replaced? And number two, if so, what would be the best caliber in my opinion? So if we get into the 277 Fury here, so again, it's going to be a 150 grain bullet, muzzle energy out of a 16-inch barrel, 2830 muzzle energy, 2667. So and out of a 24-inch barrel, 3120 as far as velocity, 3242 as far as energy goes. So this is going to be a bullet that's probably going to be comparable to like a 6.5 PRC, probably maybe not quite. I'm not. They don't have exact ballistics on it going downrange, but it's probably comparable to that of like a 6.5 PRC. Which again, you're really like it's even more power than a 308, right? Even bordering on a well, basically a 30-06 to be quite honest. But the difference being is this is a 27 caliber bullet or a 6.8 millimeter bullet, right? So, what are the costs and benefits to this bullet? Well, if you look at the cost, or sorry, the pros and the cons. The pros are you get more power, you get flatter shooting, you get that's basically the only pros, right? Which again is really good, right? It's really good. What are the cons? The cons is, well, number one, I believe that this caliber is going to be going at about 85,000 psi, which is very, very, very high pressure. Number two, again, the bullets are heavy. Again, they're the same weight as a 308 bullet, right? Or roughly. So again, it's to carry around a couple hundred rounds. You're going to need to be carrying around a lot more weight than a 5.56, especially. And again, on top of that, what's the recoil going to be like? Is it going to be comparable to seemingly, if you're just looking at it from the outside looking in, it seems like it's going to be comparable to a 308. So that's going to be another issue too, is that if it's going to be recoiling that heavy, then that's going to be an issue. But again, you do have a much flatter shooting bullet. You do have a much more powerful bullet. Those are very, very good to have. So again, let's compare it to some of these other bullets. Let's just get into it here. So again, 5.56, we've got the classic 55 grain FMJ, just under 1,300 pounds of energy at the muzzle, about 300 at 500 yards, again, 48 inches of drop. So, um, you know, the problem with the 5.56 is a lack of energy, and it's not that it doesn't shoot super flat, it's simply that it gets pushed around by the wind. And this is another problem with the 5.56, in my opinion, is I'm not sure why people aren't pushing to use heavier bullets more, and I'll give you an example of this. We have the 75 grain match bullet by Hornady here. Again, 1,400 pounds of energy at the muzzle, so you're going to get a lot more power. You got 569 at 500, which is still decent. You got 43 inches of drop, right? The ballistic coefficient on these, what is it? I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's probably about 400 or so. So it's still lacking in that department. It's still going to get, it's, yeah, 395. So it's still getting pushed around a decent amount, or quite a bit. But you still got a lot more power. You still got, fairly flat shooting, right? So that's one thing I'm surprised that more people don't push for heavier bullets with higher ballistic coefficients out of the 5.56, because they could easily improve the performance without actually having to switch to a whole nother caliber, right? So um, compare it to the 224 Valkyrie, which is kind of an upgrade to the 5.56, but still a 22 caliber bullet. Again, say 1,400 pounds of energy at the muzzle, but at 500 yards, you have 720 foot-pounds of energy, right? So you got a lot more, decent amount more power. So again, this is the caliber. I'm not sure why it doesn't get more love, because it definitely is a good step up on the 5.56. The higher velocity bullet, or sorry, the higher weight bullets. And again, getting into what I believe is the best alternative to the 5.56, that being the 6 millimeter arc, or maybe the 6 millimeter Creedmoor, but I have the 6 millimeter arc here pulled up. Again, you got 1,800 pounds of energy at the muzzle, so again, a very significant step up. 2,750 feet per second. Again, at 500 yards, you get 931 foot-pounds of energy. Again, 44 inches of drop. So again, it's flat. It's not super flat shooting, but it's fairly flat shooting. But again, you do have that significant step up in velocity. And again, the reason why I think it's probably the best alternative is you get that great middle ground between a bullet that's not going to be super heavy recoiling, a bullet that still has a significant step up in power to the 5.56, but again, it's not going to be super heavy, and it's not going to be um, higher, super high in recoil, right? Because that's gonna that's the main reason. And people who say, "Oh, don't be a baby" or whatever, but it's like the reason why the military went to the 5.56 is because the 308 and the 30-06 recoil too much and they're too heavy, and you don't really need it, to be quite honest, unless you're shooting very far. But if you're shooting very far, it's like the 308 at 1,000 yards is even the 30-06 at 1,000 yards is going to have its issues, right? So that's another issue too. But it's like out to 500 yards is probably what you're looking at, because beyond 500 yards is a crapshoot unless you're using a designated marksman rifle or a sniper rifle, right? Um, so again, the 6 millimeter arc is in my opinion the best alternative. Personally, I don't think that we need to go away from the 5.56 necessarily. I think that they just need to get some better bullets, right? No, again, that's easier said than done, obviously. If you compare it to the 7.62 by 39, again, 1,500 pounds of energy, 2,350 muzzle velocity. Again, but downrange, it's getting significantly worse. 348, 96 inches of drop. So it's basically unusable beyond about 300 yards or so. 6-point SBC, which is the one that a lot of people want to go towards. Um, Let's compare it to that. Again, energy 1558 at the muzzle, 563 at 500. So it's not that bad. I mean, it definitely is a step up, but you got 66 inches of drop. So it's just not flat shooting enough. So in the end, we're going to see, right? We're going to see, but it seems like this is just the military going back in time, because again, the reason why they switched away from the 308 and the 30-06 is because they're too big. They're too you don't no. It's not that it's not nice to have the power, but it's unnecessarily high power because. And again, it also depends too on what kind of fighting you're talking about. Like if you're talking about more urban combat, well, it's absolutely definitely like you definitely do not need anything more than a 5.56 or even some of these lower caliber bullets, because if you're shooting someone at 100 yards, or even a deer at 100 yards, you don't need 2,500, 3,000 pounds of energy, right? 1,500 is going to be enough, right? Even 1,000 is going to be enough most of the time, right? So, in my opinion, the 5.56, if they went towards heavier bullets, again, obviously that's easier said than done. I think that's a good solution. But if you're not going to do it, in my mind, the 6 millimeter arc is probably the best alternative, because you have that perfect middle ground between a step up in power, a step up in ballistics, but you're not going super high to where the recoil is going to be crazy high and the bullets are going to be crazy heavy, right? That's my opinion. So again, I'd love to hear people's comments. So again, like I say, obviously feel free to comment. I'd love to hear feedback, but that is my opinion. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.